Right. Good morning, good evening, everybody. Hope you're having a good start to your day and had a great day. Thanksgiving, welcome, everybody. So, today we are going to continue on the topic that we initiated in 3.29. It's a pretty interesting topic on the path of spirituality. How do we go about this, especially when it comes to dealing with people around, navigating through a lot of scenarios, situations, which I'm sure all of us go through. And more importantly, what does Lord Krishna saying about it? Okay. And that is why we are going to do a fast forward today and take you directly to chapter 18. Okay. It's a fast track and see what Lord Krishna is talking about and derive some kind of a framework for ourselves around that. Okay, that is where we can have a bit of a discussion. Obviously we can, it's a pretty lengthy deep topic and very contextual, very subjective as well. Each situation can become unique, but at least it will give us some broader outline or a broader framework, and hopefully bring in more clarity around some of the gray areas which will always exist. Like our scriptures say, we will have to deal with duality and learn to rise above duality by using this duality alone, right? So anyways, I know it's time, so let's get started like with our opening prayers, and then we'll get deeper into our discussion today. We don't have time pressure, I believe, today, so I think we can pace it nicely. Welcome again, everybody. We'll get started with our opening prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurudevo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanurmardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Radha Radha everyone. So today, like I said, we were discussing a very interesting topic that's more related to spirituality. How do we go about? Because we have to exist in this world. Right? We are existing in this world and will continue to exist in this world. And part of that is the occupational hazard of, by just because we have to operate in this world is then when you pick up, have that spark in spirituality and it all starts falling in place, that big puzzle that is there in our head, there would be situations where you'll have to deal with people around, right? And especially when people look at you, something changes, something starts changing, our perspective starts changing, their perspective starts changing towards us as well. You would see it can make some people uncomfortable as well. And there are a lot of discussions which are on offer, as we pick up on this path. So today we are going to do a bit of a fast track, go to chapter 18. That is where Lord Krishna is pretty much summarizing his message and giving some concluding words to Arjun after he has given the complete message. So Bhagavad Gita journey goes like starting, with the analytical, the Sankhya Yoga aspect of it, where Lord Krishna introduces the concept of soul, who are you, what's your true identity, and then from confidential knowledge, he goes on to more confidential and the most confidential knowledge. And once he has imparted the deep knowledge to Krishna, we're going to touch a little bit of an aspect of that as well, right? Karam Yoga, Karam Sannyas as well. Then Lord Krishna tells Arjun, which is something that could provide us a bit of a framework or a broader guideline around this topic for our lives as well. And that is what we are going to do. So don't get surprised. It's not that we have started this session for a while and we are in chapter 18, but we are doing a fast forward for that, just for this particular topic. And then again, we'll come back to our 3.30, when we pick up our next session. So sometimes we jump back and forth, especially when there is a logical, interrelation of or interplay of some of the shlokas, and that's why we're picking up 18.67, but we still have a lot of way to go. So I'll pick up this shloka and then you're welcome to follow, and then we'll get into the deeper discussion today. Idam te natpaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana न चाशुश्रूषवे वाच्यं न च मां योऽभ्यसूयति. Okay, do we have any volunteers today? Very
Shyamji,
nice.
go ahead, Shyamji.
Let me try.
Yes, please.
Idam te natpaskaya na bhaktaye kadachana na cha shrushave vachyam na cha mayo besuyati.
Very nice, Shyamji. Radhe Radhe. This was a curveball for most, but you got it well. Thank you very much. All right, I can see.
Rupaji, please go ahead.
Well, yes, Rupaji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
It seems a bit difficult, but just give me a try. I don't know.
For sure, go ahead, please.
Idam te nata paskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na cha sheva vachayam na cha mamayobhyasutai. I don't know.
No worries. You did well. You tried well. So very nice. I know it was a new shloka. You didn't get a chance to practice on it, but you did pretty well, I must say. Thank you, Rupaji.
Thank you. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. All right. Do we have anybody else as well? I can
Sumeshji, you can go ahead, please.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Sumesh.
Na tapaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na cha shrushave vachyam na cha mam yobhyasuyati. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice, Sumesh. Radhe Radhe. Thank you very much. So for those of you who, yes, I can see one more hand. Yes, please go ahead.
Shrutiji, you can go ahead.
Hi. In the te natpaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na cha shushrushuve vachyam na cha mayo bhasuyati.
Very nice, Shruti. Wonderful. All right. So let's look at the short translation. Do we have any more hands or?
Yeah, we do have Lakshmi ji. One
Okay.
more.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Go ahead, Lakshmi Prasanna ji. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Idam te natapakshaya na bhaktaya kadachana na cha shrushave vachayam na cha mamayobhyasutayi.
Suyati. Very nice. Thank you, Lakshmi ji. I can see one more hand. We'll take one more and we'll get started then.
Go ahead, Hital ji.
Idam te natpaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na cha srusvade bhatyam na cha mayobhyasuyati.
Thank you, Hitalji. Very nice. All right, let's get started then. Idam means this, te means by you, na never, atapaskaya to those who are not austere, na never, abhaktaya to those who are not devoted, kadachana at any time, na never, cha also, ashu shushrave to those who are averse to listening to the spiritual topics, Vachyam to be spoken, na never, cha also, mam toward me, ya who, abhasuyati those who are envious. All right, so the short translation for this shloka, I think I can see quite a few Need to admit all. All right. So the short translation for the shloka goes like, this instruction should never be explained to those who are not austere, you can mark the words, or those who are not devoted. It should also not be spoken to those who are averse to listening. Refers to the spiritual topics, and especially not to those who are envious of me. So can you believe it? Somebody can be envious of Lord Krishna as well. Now you might be wondering who would be envious of him, but it actually can come from if you read Bhagavad Gita and you go to Purushottam Yoga, where Lord Krishna is defining about his own glories, because Arjuna asked him, can you tell something about yourself? So that God has to answer Krishna's question, and he goes on to explain, how can he understand Lord Krishna? And when he starts explaining, amongst mountains, I am Mount Himalaya, amongst the words, I am the Omkar, amongst the Vedas, I am the Samved, and so on and so forth. When he goes on to say that, now if somebody hears it for the first time, without having no context, no devotion, no faith, they would say, what kind of a God is Krishna? He's asking Arjun to glorify himself. He has got a big ego. Those kind of thoughts can come as well. Okay, that is why it's very important first to till the ground, have the required seeds of devotion, and then understand it in perspective. Then we will not, go down that path or that kind of thought process. But anyways, this shloka comes immediately after 18.66, where Lord Krishna goes on and tells Arjun, Sarv dharmam parityajya mamekam sharanam braj. Okay. Now this instruction, as we would see, would apply not just to that shloka, but to Bhagavad Gita in general, or the spiritual topics in general. So that's where we're going to have a bit of a discussion today. But before that, let's go into a bit of a theory, and we'll spend more time during the discussion today. So look at this. This is a finish of a jeweler, how a jeweler works on polishing or shaping the jewels, right? This is one aspect. And on the other extreme is a sledgehammer of a blacksmith. Certain metals, they need a sledgehammer, and certain, in order to be adorned, they need the finish of a jeweler. Okay, I'll not get too deep into it as yet. We'll revisit, but keep these concepts, at the backdrop of the discussion we're going to have a little bit later today. Let's get into the theory now. So debt, these are the debts. What are the debts all of us are subjected to because of our existence? We have a debt towards the celestial gods for the sustenance of this universe, all the water, air, rain, grain cycle we had spoken about. So we are indebted to those celestial gods. The existence is not free of cost. God says that you have that debt that we need to clear off. Then the other debt to the sages who have given this knowledge and passed on the wisdom from generations to generations, and we owe it to them as well. If everything was codified and we could not understand it, then it would have been of no use for anybody whatsoever. So to the sages who descend on this earth from time to time, sages and saints, there is a rent to them as well. The third debt is to our ancestors, because of whom we are here today. The fourth one is to other fellow human beings. If you look at it, any company, anything in this world is actually ashrit on other human beings. We cannot create anything on our own. Right? Today's Elon Musk has taken over Jeff Bezos, and they also work for the generating wealth for the stakeholders, and stakeholders are the ones which have generated money, so that these companies which have gone public can actually take their offerings to the next level. So basically everything on this universe depends on other human beings. We come empty-handed, we leave empty-handed. In between, whatever we gain, whatever we are able to enjoy, opulence, is actually, we owe it to a lot of people around us. We cannot just do it on our own. So there's a debt for other humans as well. And the fifth one is to other living beings, other pranis or other bhutatvas that we have, right? Even the air that we breathe is actually given to us by the trees. just as an example. And every 7 years, our body changes, and when we breathe in, we could actually be taking oxygen atoms coming from 7 oceans across. That much dependence we have on other things, which for our sustenance, right? And when we breathe out carbon dioxide, the trees, they absorb it. It's not just the trees, right? The air and all the elements of this universe, we do, all the living entities, we do owe it to them. So these debts are the eternal debts we have to, we are indebted because of, sustaining our life on this planet. And that is the reason why the Varna Ashram Dharma in our Vedic culture, it includes different procedures that would absolve ourselves from these 5 kind of debts, right? Karma card aspect of it. That's why it's at 80% of those are around Vidhi Nished and different Varnashram Dharma, and also these debts are there. If you simply lead our life in enjoying without even knowing about these debts, obviously we are not doing ourselves a favor, because we have to give back in some form or manner. That's where yagna, sacrifice, or the spirit of sacrifice come into picture as well. Having said that, in 1866, Lord explains very clearly, he's simplified this whole thing. He says, these 5 debts are there, but when you surrender to God, you're automatically released from all these debts. These debts are no longer applicable to you at that point. And it's just like watering the roots of a tree, all its branches, twigs, everything is watered automatically. You don't have to individually go to a tree and start watering it. So when you start doing, fulfilling your duty towards God, the duty towards everyone is automatically fulfilled, because what devotion towards God is as good as watering the root of a tree, and nothing else is needed at that point. So all the debts that we spoke about in the previous slide, as you see, are no longer applicable to you. However, the condition is surrender. Okay? And in order to surrender, obviously, we need to perfect our devotion. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg kind of a situation, but then Lord Krishna has explained it very nicely in Bhagavad Gita. The day you surrender, even when you strive to surrender and start approaching God with devotion, you may not have perfected your surrender. You are no longer bound by these debts, because now you have started attaching your mind or watering the root of the tree itself. Let's move on. So if you look at from a knowledge standpoint, right? If you look at it, I am like in cybersecurity, there is something called classified, confidential, very confidential, top secret. And this knowledge is it's also very, very, very confidential. Guhitam, Guhitar, and Guhitam. Lord Krishna is talking about this knowledge as the Bhagavad Gita is going to unfold. And Lord Krishna is saying very clearly that this knowledge is a confidential teaching, and it is not for everyone. And categorically, he's stating, before sharing it with others, we should check their eligibility for this teaching. The word of caution is applied here. 18.66, I said that verse says, Sarv dharmam parityajya mamekam sharanam bhraj. If you simply say that, surrender to God and forget about everything else, it can be easily misconstrued, misinterpreted, and misunderstood. Okay, there has to be an eligibility around it as well. In 3.29, the previous shloka that we were doing, because we are in chapter 3, Kritsnavit person, right? Lord Krishna had given that instruction that people who are wise, they should not disturb the minds of people who are not wise. If you simply go ahead and say that, you are the soul, not the body, karma is meaningless, give it up, those higher instruction, if you start disseminating, it can actually confuse people, right? No wonder if you look at Bhagavad Gita, most of the people think Bhagavad Gita is, if you start reading Bhagavad Gita, you will become a monk, you will run to a forest and you will give up everything, run away from your responsibility, and so on and so forth. However, Bhagavad Gita is a call to action, right? The deeper understanding takes us where Lord Krishna is actually directing us to. If you don't understand it clearly, if you start disseminating these instructions without really having understood it, or if your audience is not eligible for it, then it can actually lead them astray. And that is why there's a caveat that Lord Krishna is issuing around it. So continuing on with that, there's an eligibility aspect of it. Now, these instructions are transcendental. If people are faithless, they don't have any faith in God, it can actually have a counterproductive effect. They can even become offenders, right? If you're not ready for it, and if you start hearing this message, it's like, okay, forget it. whatever little spark they might have had, that can put that off as well. That is how treacherous it could be. And in the previous verse, like I said, if you're situated in loving devotion to God, then there is no sin. But if you're not there yet, then obviously it is a sin, because you will be neither here nor there. And then that is why 99.9% people, Lord Krishna is saying, go through Karma Yoga, continue with your duties in accordance with your gunas, in accordance with your prescribed duties that you are currently in your, in your present life. It could be your job, it could be your carrying on with your family life, or a combination of everything. You could be a householder and at the same time doing variety of activities, right? You could be a housewife, or you could be a professional. Anything and everything that you do, continue to do that. However, just make a slight adjustment. Previously you were doing it for the sake of your sensual enjoyment, so that I can enjoy, I can earn more, so that I can go out on a vacation, or I could enjoy acquiring opulences, and it's just about me. Now you start doing it with a consciousness that these abilities are given to me by God for a purpose, and then you start doing it as a sacrifice to God, and it'll start purifying your mind, your consciousness, and eventually it'll lead you to that perfect surrender and devotion that Lord Krishna is talking about. And that is the significance of Karma Yoga. And Karma Sannyas, you cannot retire from your day-to-day life unless you have that eligibility. Okay, and it can only be done under the expert guidance of a guru. So that is where the confusion can happen when we start relaying the message, the end message of Bhagavad Gita, end of the day, we have to perfect devotion or surrender for God. But if you don't go through the hoops that are required to get to that point, it can easily be misunderstood, and people can take it as an escapist route, or to turn away from their day-to-day duties and become irresponsible. So they'll be neither here nor there. Anyways, these are deeper concepts, but let's get into some of the practical challenges that we see around this concept. And that is where we're going to have a bit of a discussion around spiritual journey, do's and don'ts. I'm going to pose a few questions. I would like to hear from participants. You can pick up any one of those. I'm sure you'll be able to relate to one or more of these, and then see what are some of the best practices that can be adopted with regards to the framework that has been presented to us by Lord Krishna around this concept. So the first one is get into debates. I've been guilty of getting into debates with people. Hey, there is God, there is no God. It should be like this, it should be like that. That is the first part. Let me pose all the questions before we open it up for the discussion. The second one is, should we be trying to talk people into it? We get over enthusiastic around it and then start telling people, or holding their hands and bringing them to satsang and say, you need to do this, or come to this Guruji, take this mantra, it's going to change your life, or do this. And so now we are forcing people, coercing people, trying to talk them into it. Okay, that is the other thing that can happen. The third thing is, how do we navigate situations? Husband, spouse, wife, kids, relatives, they are discouraging you. It's like, what's going on with your life? You do Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, you're doing Radhe Radhe every day. Are you going to become sannyasi? We also do puja part. Why don't you just focus to that? Okay, now you're going to give up life. You're losing interest in us. So all those challenges are going to come as well. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to it. The next one is, should we be wearing it on our sleeves? Putting it, and every time any opportunity presents, you start talking about it, with regardless of your audience, right? It's like hammer trying to find a nail, because we are feeling inspired. There's obviously a sense of bliss you would feel, but regardless of audience, regardless of person, regardless of what state of mind they are in, should we just keep on talking about what we have to talk about? That is another. Or keep it to ourselves and preserve it, because there could be other ramifications of it as well. The next one, shall we become patronizing, having that air of superiority that, hey, by the way, we have understood something important and I think I know better than you. And we start chastising, lecturing people. That patronizing thing can happen. Our ego is very subtle. It can play tricks. That's another one. And then the most importantly, I've just picked up 4 or 5. I know it's not an all-inclusive list. You can talk about that. How to make sure that whatever progress we are making, we don't come in contact with opinions, things, and discussions which could derail our journey itself. That is the biggest one. It's like earning is one aspect of it, but ensuring we don't lose whatever we have earned is of paramount importance. how do we make sure that doesn't happen? So I would open it up. Today's session was more an extension of our previous session because it's a pretty interesting conversation. So I wanted to continue with that discussion and see what participants have to say. Pick up anyone that you can relate to. If it is something outside of list, please feel free. And then we will build on that conversation to see how we can enrich that conversation and hopefully provide some tips and techniques that have worked for us to make sure that we continue through this journey without any major roadblocks and continue to make progress on this path. All right, I'll take a pause and open it up now for discussion. Anybody who would like to? All right.
Shyamji, please go ahead, Shyamji. You can, yeah.
Yeah, you can put your camera on and then let's get this going.
Radhe Radhe, everybody.
Radhe Radhe, Shyamji.
My journey is so perfect. All the questions are so fun to me. I would say that I at times go into debates, and of lately, I told you earlier also, for Gita has really shaken me a lot for last couple of years, and I've been into it for some time now. And whenever I get a chance, I do tell people to read Gita, and some they laugh it off, as I also do. But then I I do not know. Somehow I relate everything to Gita nowadays. Every instance of my life, every chapter, every incident, I can relate to it so clearly, so perfectly that I just tend to start giving lecture to people around me, whether it's my family, my kids, wherever. And sometimes people just laugh at me. I just take it in my stride. Take it. It's okay. I took almost 45 years to reach this level, so it's their journey. They will take the similar time or same time, but I should not get disheartened, or I should not feel bad or guilty that I am not able to tell them, guide them, or explain them. But still, I do my job. I tell them and go over it. And at times, I also feel that my faith gets shaken at times because they have their valuable points, which I at times get, maybe yeah, they are right, I am wrong, because I have not been so much into Gita right now. I'm still there, a novice, I would say. But yes, my faith gets shaken at times. Then why? I do not know why it happens, but it does happen. Because earlier, I was told you earlier also, I was worshipping Ma Durga, then Shivji, then now Hanumanji, now I turned to Krishna of lately. So people uh, not make fun of me, but tell me in a very light way that you have not still seen what you wanted to be, and still you are doodling here and there, shifting your focus with all these gods. So I feel it's okay. So, but I think I'll be for
Finish your work.
I'll do it off. I do not know, but I guess this is the way I feel. I do not know everybody around us, but I feel the same way. Yes, I am still not sure who is my Ishdev or my true God. I should be looking onto it, but I am almost there. I would say I have started my journey, and I'm sure I will not leave Krishna now. That's for sure. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Shamji, for narrating your personal examples and the situations that you have faced. I picked up the ones that I have gone through, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to it as well, because I've actually been through pretty much all of these phases. Other than with God and Guru's grace, that faith is not shaken. That part has not happened, and that's probably because of God and Guru's grace. But I have been part of all these things that I've written about here, right? And then I started this session by putting this picture in front, right? Finis of a jeweler or a sledgehammer of a blacksmith. And in this particular path, especially when it comes to convincing people, friends, family, see, one of the things that happens is you start feeling so euphoric from within. Start feeling so inspired and happy from within that you want to share it with your near and dear ones, right? And then you start doing it forcefully. Although our intent is good there, it will not work, especially with youngsters. So that is a sledgehammer kind of an approach. Instead, it has to be a finis of a jeweler where you have to work very, very slowly. Got to be patient, tolerant, maybe a nugget, logical nugget, and then let them chew it, see it, get inspired by themselves, because change has to come from within, right? So that is why I always remember this jeweler thing, and what I have actually learned the hard way. And this thing was reiterated by Swamiji also in today's SMX session. that this is how you need to work on that. Okay, not like a big sledgehammer and expecting that somebody is going to listen to your word and change. At the same time, see, Lord Krishna is talking about a pretty profound message, right? We cannot be talking about Bhagavad Gita's message here, but when it comes to inspiring somebody to get on this path, there is small things we can do, right? And those small things is obviously that is well within our influence, and that has to be done very, very smartly. It's a very delicate balance that we have to maintain. Otherwise, it could be counterproductive, and that's where we can continue to build on this discussion. I can see quite a few other hands before we get into some of the tools and techniques that usually work. Yes, let's see who else we have.
Padmaji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe Padmaji.
Radhe Radhe. I'll just say like three main things and rest I'll just expand on the portal.
Mhm.
It's funny that you bought one of the things. It was just yesterday and somebody was really wanting to talk me out of this. So in Telugu, there is a word which is called Vairagyam. Vairagyam is like Vairag, right? Like Vairag, right? So so I had to hear like few minutes of lecture that you're really going deep into this, and then this is somebody who has been spiritual, so they're like, listen to me, this is not the way to go, and eventually Vairagyam is not what you should be getting into. So I didn't say anything because I really wanted to digest, because if somebody is spiritual and if they are saying something, there is something that they have seen that I have not seen. There's something that they're really trying very hard to say and express something to me, and they're trying to tell me. So I was just very quiet in the moment, and I said, let me just process this later. So I processed it. Spirituality is everybody contemplates on it in a completely different way, and it is natural, right? They're combination of experiences, and not just life experiences, but experiences within spirituality, and situations and contemplations, and sorrows or emotions and failures, kind of puts, everybody has a projected view of spirituality, even though the eventual destination has to be what it needs to be, but the projection of what that spirituality looks very completely different from everybody's vision. So from their vision, this is what they're seeing. Neither I have to be convinced by them, or neither they should be convincing to me. They said, stay in the moment, take what you can, but come back and digest what you have processed from your own spirituality. That was my takeaway. Like, say, take that as an experience and process it the way that I want to process it. That was number one. And number two, based on one of the questions that you have posed, which is, when you see, I'll just finish this thought, sorry.
Sure, please go ahead.
Right. When you have, we think that, when you're going through the spiritual path, we think that we have clarity and transparency over spirituality. And when you're seeing the things the way that you're seeing with clarity and transparency, we feel that burden. We take that burden over our shoulders, that we have to change other people. As you were saying, like, you feel like they have to see the transparency, they have to see it as clearly as I have seen. So you take that burden over your shoulders. Rather than taking that burden over your shoulders, leave it up to the feet of the God, and say, I'm just going to project my actions. I'm just going to project my love. I'm just going to project my empathy. I'm just going to project my compassion. Let the empathy, compassion, love, and sympathy project for the purpose itself, which is spirituality. I think that will give us a peace of mind and the other person to contemplate on in a very healthy way.
Beautiful. Very true. In fact, this is a very, very, very profound point. In fact, this was one of the things that attracted me to this path. In fact, solidified my faith and belief, because for the first time, I had seen people who actually seemed happy and in bliss, which I had never seen anybody, no matter how powerful, rich, famous people that I've known, influential people, nobody. And when I saw certain faces, and it was not just one face, okay, certain faces, I was like, something they have cracked in life, which is working for them. And same way, if we can actually walk the talk, and rather than trying to talk them into it, just operate in a manner befitting for a devotee, they will feel automatically inspired, because everybody is seeking peace, everybody is seeking joy, everybody is seeking happiness, everybody is seeking clarity of thought, everybody is seeking knowledge, everybody is seeking how to operate effectively in this world without losing your mind. common problems, everybody, when you start demonstrating some of it around, not consciously, of course, I mean, if it has to work for you, then people will automatically get attracted and say, hey, by the way, what are you doing? And I've seen those examples. Okay, so people say, what do you do, by the way? And they get hooked onto this path, and one thing leads to another leads to another. So best odds of attracting people is to be able to walk the talk and experience it for yourself. And in the process, you don't know how many people might end up getting inspired with it. Regarding debates, beautiful points, Padmaji. I came to my head, I think I've forgotten the complete story. I think it was Ramakrishna Paramhans or one of the saints that we've had. During his time, there used to be a very intellectual scholar person. Okay, he would come and debate and defeat everybody. And this guy wanted to come and debate with Ramakrishna Paramhans as well. And when he came to debate, his disciples would do not engage in debate with this person. He's notoriously known for defeating people and humiliating them during the debates itself. And he said, no, bring it on, that's fine. So this guy comes and says to let's say Ramakrishna Paramahansa, if my story is right, it was one of the saints, if not him, but I hope you'll get the gist of it. He says, I challenge you, there is no God. And then he said, he just looked at him, nodded, and he said, wonderful. He just affirmative reply he gave. Now this guy was zapped. He was like, okay, debate can happen between two people. Whatever I'm saying, this guy is agreeing. And then again, he said something about God. He said, wow, like he clapped and acknowledged and nodded, kind of a deal. So after that, he started getting frustrated. He said, is there anything? You don't have nothing to debate about? And is there anything you want to say at all? And he said, I was wondering, if you are so intelligent, Ramakrishna Paramahansa tells this person, if you are so intelligent, I'm just wondering how intelligent the person would be who has created you. And that's where the debate ended. So point being, once we start getting into debates, it's pointless. For every statement, for every argument, for every thought, there is a counter statement, counter argument, counter thought. It can be an endless exercise. In our scriptures, it is called Vitandavat. Doesn't take us too far. I have debated heavily, okay, during that initial enthusiasm is there. But then quickly it starts dawning upon you, is it even worth it? It's not just about defeating somebody in an argument. It's just about, is it going to bring about a change in the other person or not? So when we approach it with compassion, that is what we target on. When we approach it with ego, what we target is winning the argument. That doesn't take us. We may win the argument, but you think it will bring about a change in the other person? Probably not. So the true compassion is really knowing whether that is truly going to help that person. If not, if they have closed doors, pointless. Why to waste energy, right? All right, wonderful, Padmaji. Let's hear from other participants as well and continue with this discussion. More importantly, if somebody wants to touch upon the patronizing and wearing it in your sleeves aspect of it, right? We have a tendency to wear it on our sleeve and basically show we are devotees everywhere we go, which is a great thing. But any situations or so where you have felt that you feel challenged around that? Yes, let's hear from participants.
Kumarji, please go ahead. Yes.
Kumarji.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Radhe Nitin ji, Amrtawani ji, and everyone else. Well, thanks to God and to my parents, and especially to my mother, who from a very young age, told me stories, had bhakti, like we said slokas almost every day. So it kind of grew in me. Lucky for me, like many a times I have become the kind of a rebel to the extent saying, there's no God when I didn't get my engineering seat first time. So to various ways, and I got into many debates with so many people, and only later on did I come to know, because sometimes I didn't have the answer. Like, this is much before tsunami, of course. Why does earthquakes happen? Or if God is really that benevolent, why is this happening? Why are people in Africa so hungry? I didn't have many answers to that, and because I didn't have the scriptural knowledge as well, and I didn't ask anyone at the time. So I used to feel so defeated, but somehow something told me that, whatever they are saying, well, probably logically could be there, but something kind of made me believe there's something wrong with that as well. So somehow thanks to God that, they didn't they had sometimes very good arguments. It's just that luckily I didn't get into it. Well, I got into the debates, but somehow, later on I found that there is no use debating with such people. Actually, one of the very interesting debates I had is one person I had in a train for almost an hour. And he was like totally not abusing, but he was saying there's no God. How can you say this and all that stuff? And I'm trying to explain to him with my very little knowledge. Of course, he was too good in his this one. And at the end of it, almost after an hour or two, he says, no, I believe in God. I just was testing you.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, wow. How crazy, I'll try to finish my thoughts on the other ones. So I've tried talking people into it. See, what I did was similar to what my parents did. My bedtime stories for my kids were always about Hanuman, who is my favorite god. I used to talk about Ram, Hanuman mainly, and they would be interested in it. So I started trying to get them interested in spiritual serials as well. There is one spiritual serial which came at the time where Shiva comes as a friend to a human guy. I forget the name of it. So interesting. And my son was also getting interested in that. Then suddenly he got disinterested. But then, I was trying to get many people interested, and somehow I was not. And I was getting really frustrated about it. Then I said, you know what, after a lot of this one contemplation, not even contemplation, I think more knowledge from Swamiji and other people, then I realized that each person is a spiritual soul. The journey is very different. You cannot take people with you on the journey. You just have to go on your journey and then let other people be as they are. I've been deemed so much times for believing what I did, but luckily, again, many times I have lost faith for some time, but I just rebounded back, and I'm so happy that I could do that. And of late, of course, with Swamiji's advice and all that, lessons, I'm being able to be back. So, and I greatly am thankful to this whole forum to keep me there and, with like-minded souls. Thanks, Radhe Radhe.
Wonderful. Very nicely articulated, Kumarji. Yes, I think when we narrate our journey, I'm sure a lot of people can actually relate to it as well, because it's a common path, right? For most of us, situations may be more intense or less intense for people, but typically the same territory, we are chartering the same territory around this, right? Swamiji gave a very beautiful example around that as well, right? God, for somebody to conclusively say there is no God, you need to know pretty much everything out in this universe. Okay, not just our universe, but the entire universe. Okay, not just four-headed Brahma universe, but all the universe, rest of the material creation as well. Because if you don't know one thing, just one thing, let's say, in that there's so many things we don't know. 99.99999% universe we don't know. And our Earth or our solar system, or for that matter, our galaxy, Milky Way, is probably a speck of dust in this entire creation. And if it's eliminated for some reason, it will not even cause a rounding off error. That is how insignificant our entire galaxy or this Brahmand is. So for us to conclusively say there is no God, we have to know absolutely everything out in this universe. Because if there is one thing that we don't know, that could be God. So when somebody says that, who's taking a bigger leap of faith? One who's saying there is God based on what our scriptures say, or one who's saying there is no God? Who's having a blind faith? That is a question to be asked, right? And with these miseries, again, there's an interesting analogy that comes to my mind. It's like somebody sees a guy with beard. Okay, then he walks a few steps and then there's another guy with beard, and then he sees another guy with beard. And the conclusion he draws is, there are no barbers on this earth. Okay, that is a fallacy, logical fallacy. If you understand, if there is misery, there is no God. They've chosen not to go to the barber. Okay, and there's a reason, and it's very nicely explained in our scriptures, Adi Bhautik, Adhyatmik, and why that happens, what is material energy, or what kind of jail we are in. Everything is explained. It's just that we've not thought that far ahead, or we haven't had exposure or the motivation to do that. And just to simplify our thought process, we simply say, oh, God is not there. Great points, Kumarji. Let's continue. I can see quite a few other hands. Let's move on.
Srinathji, please go ahead. Thank you for
Yes,
raising.
and if you can narrate some of the incidents where you've had situations dealing with near and dear ones when they are not supportive, I'm sure that will happen and it is bound to happen. Okay, so if you can bring in some of those as well, that'll be nice. So let's hear Srinathji as well.
Radhe Radhe Nitinji, Radhe Radhe Amritwaniji and everyone.
Radhe Radhe, Srinathji.
So in terms of, these questions, interesting questions or so, first thing that I guess, we have to know is the fact that, we're all work in progress. And the fact that, the other thing is everybody is at a different level, so to speak, So once I think we understand that, then a lot of the things, start to become little easy, I guess, But in terms of the debates and all, clearly, we should not have those debates. It's not good. Trying to talk to people, trying to talk people into it is also not a good thing, But then the real thing is, if we think about it, why is it so that we always hear about these debates always going on and things like that? But why is that? Because in one side, the person who has kind of followed the spiritual path, is on the spiritual path, kind of understands the fact that let's say this human life is a very important life, and we get only after a multiple eons of age or so that has gone by.
Yep.
So in that sense, we are trying to help this other individual to why, hey, you should follow this one, and that's why it kind of leads to debate that you're still trying to help this person. But on the other side, the ignorant person is like, well, doesn't understand it, so they would stand their own ground. And also it has to do with the gunas as well. They could be in the tamas or rajas gun, and that's kind of becomes difficult. Now also in terms of with the near ones and dear ones, clearly the fact that if they are in one of the different gunas, you don't want to again drag them into the spiritual path or so. But we should just do our karmas, be karma yogi.
Yes.
So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you, Radha.
Beautiful point, Srinathji. In fact, there's a English quotation which talks about stupid, but I'll call it ignorant. So it says that do not argue with people who are in ignorance or ignorant people, because they will first bring you down to their own level and then beat you with experience. So yeah, especially in the path of spirituality, it's pointless to debate, like I told that story. And more importantly, when Lord Krishna is saying this message is not for there, we have to not trivialize this message. I'll tell you one more very, very perilous or dangerous ramification of it, okay, which we really have to think hard about. There is a concept of namaprad in our scriptures, where if you have, if you think something bad about God Leelas, or you have you start thinking critically, start critiquing those with your limited intellect, or about a saint, then it is called an unpardonable offense in your mind, because you are doing a big disfavor to your spiritual journey. And it is considered one of the gravest sins when your mind starts playing gymnastics with spiritual things. It is not a good thing to do. So when we start talking people into it and they don't have faith, and they start criticizing these things, or they start demeaning what God has done, actually we are actually forcing them to do that namaprad, which is not good, which probably otherwise they wouldn't have had they been neutral. So when I say it could be counterproductive, means I've seen some people, first they are neutral, or okay, it's okay, we don't want to think about it, talk about it. But just because we keep on talking to them, and because of that, if they develop aversion because of their past sanskars and they start doing namaprad, actually we have done them a big disfavor, because we acted as a catalyst or a trigger for that. So that is another thing. So if we don't understand somebody else, where they're coming from, or they don't show that interest or that spark or that receptivity, it's better to stay away rather than trying to talk them into it, because the results could be really counterproductive. On the other hand, those people may come back and start feeding you things in your head, which will start creating self-doubts. So whatever progress you have made, whatever was started working for you, whatever you felt inspired with, that faith will also started shaking, right? Because our knowledge is also not pakka or perfect as yet. We have not contemplated onto it deep enough. We have not attracted God's grace or Guru's grace to an extent where it will make that knowledge pakka. So at least for the initial time, I don't know, it could be a month, maybe a few years, it's like a sapling. You have put a sapling, but if you don't protect it enough, any wind can blow it away. So we have got to be very, very careful. And once you have roots are pakka, then it's like, okay, now I'm okay to take on that exposure. I can conveniently ignore what doesn't work for me and take on what is really beneficial for me. But until we reach that stage, it's important to protect our spiritual assets as well. All right, quite a few other hands raised. Let's continue with our conversation.
Hitalji, you can unmute yourself. Thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
Okay. Radhe Radhe. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. I would not like to take much time on it, but whatever Nitinji said before, I echo the same thing. That lead by examples, right? So as we work, I just heard I'm giving my example, heard the Swami Mukulananda here in September. I live in Dallas. So this is the first time I visit the temple, and I took the mind management, like 5-day, 6-day class. So the first day I joined, I was so much engrossed in it, and I was completely assailed by his ideas, the way he put his examples, ways of driving through the Gitas. And the example he was given is the real examples, like it happened in the world. So the next day I could not wait to go next day. And then all 6 days I went there, I was completely mesmerized. I was completely amazed. So the ideas I was taken from his lecture, I realized that, okay, I'm just not started anything yet to learning about Gita or something, but it make me think, it make me contemplate that, yeah, this is the right way to do it, right? So I started doing it. I started joining these forums, and many forums I joined. Sometimes I passively join, or sometimes I actively, which is I'm doing today. Now, one thing I would like to say, like when you are going on this path, your behavior, your actions, everything get changed. And some people notice you. And based on that notice, people says that, okay, who means there is something you are, like you've been different than before. So this is what I'm saying, the lead by examples, not, following blindly and giving any kind of bad example or false example, or living a dubious life. But spiritual life is the right way to do it. That's what I say.
Wonderful. Great, Kapil Hetalji. I hope to meet you in one of our programs here at Temple. But it's wonderful to know that, and very refreshing, because once you start hooked on to Swamiji's discourses, the way he builds layer on top of layer, right? And any thinking, logical, rational mind, it will really appeal to it. And great point. I think the best way to inspire people is to start trying to walk the talk, rather than trying to talk people into it. That doesn't work as much as people looking at you and you trying hard to follow those principles as well. Thank you for your thoughts, Hetalji. I can see a few hands. Let's continue with our conversation. We have time today. Yeah, we do have.
Sunitji, you can please go ahead.
Yes, Sunitji.
Yes, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
Yes, all of us have explained very well. First of all, just Nitinji has said, we are sapling. First, we have to protect ourselves. That is the very important for us. And second thing, the person just before me said that, yes, we have to lead by example. But this is our human tendency, what we are learning and what we know. We want to share it with our near and dear ones. But when they are not supportive, I have gone through this. When they are not supportive, now I have stopped that. But I have realized during these few months that this spiritual journey is individual journey. We we cannot provide clues to other, and we cannot accept their clues as well. And what we have to do, that we have to tune into our deepest self. what I have nowadays realizing that Suneet, when I get up in the morning, Suneet, I want to share my little bit knowledge, but I have grasped till now. Suneet, you can start your podcast. Suneet, you can go on Insta. So these things are coming into my mind. Maybe I will do that. Let's hope. I'm praying for best for myself. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice, Sunitji. Yes, I'm sure we all can relate to that part of it. It does happen, and I think that's where we need to be a little more, self-aware of our surroundings or the audience around it. Even if you look at the saints, big saints, when they came, they had pretty much all the knowledge that they could give, but then they fixed it or tailored it to the audience. And we should do the same, right? If youngsters are there, we cannot give them the deeper concepts. Hey, you are the soul and you should not do this, and just focus on. They may not be ready and receptive for that. Depending upon the kind of audience we are talking to. Some youngsters are pretty smart, because of their past and scars. Then lead them to the next best thing. Become good. We have so much of literature on how to be good. Just focus on your duties. What is the right thing to do at this moment? Swamiji has introduced so much of content, mind management, so many laws that determine a success and failure of our lives. 7 divine laws, like we have wonderful book clubs going on there. So if they are not receptive to the deeper messages, lead them to the next best messages. Mind management is a great thing that captivates people's mind, right? Mind management. Okay, let's get started. So there's a wonderful literature on that Swamiji has enabled, because Maharajji used to talk about mind. It is one of the things which is not spoken about much by the previous saints, and that is where Swamiji has been creating so much of in-depth literature around it. And when somebody talks about mind, stress, all these things, those buzzwords can immediately catch youth's attention. So next best thing, if not God, then next best thing is become good. If you do not even understand those principles, think about how to manage your mind. That mind management, when you suffix it with that, obviously it becomes a bit more catchy. So we really have to, different shloks for different folks, really understand our audience. And then, especially like you said, with near and dear ones, we want to share that bliss that we are feeling, and somehow want that they should also join us in this journey, but it's usually not so easy. And that's where we need to tailor our message as best as we possibly can. Okay, let's hear. I can see quite a few hands, and I think we have a good amount of time today. So,
Sunilji, please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm I think a little late to class, so I missed part of it. The yoga teachers training is going on, and actually I got this example from. I'm doing it as a refresher, but it's over now. But I got this from, actually, we were talking about ahimsa, and I think Dale brought this up, and she was talking about, there was in the biography of a yogi, that the Yogananda's guru, I think, if admonished him or admonished someone for trying to bring someone over to spirituality, because he considered it himsa, or kind of a sense of violence, by trying to drag someone there. And I thought that was a very, very, even Vivekananda said that conversion is violence. I mean, if you see people trying to convert other people, you mentioned that as well. Another interesting example, a friend of mine, he was on a plane, and he was next to a kind of a missionary, kind of a Christian guy. And so this guy was really pushing him to, you need to accept Christ in your heart. And then, so they were discussing, and then, my friend was like, okay, well, it sounds, Jesus sounds pretty reasonable. I'll accept them in his realm, not exclusively, but he said he'll accept those teachings. And the guy got so mad. He's like, what? He couldn't believe it, because he was expecting the opposite. It was like, he was expecting kind of like to really pull him in singularity, just to do his bidding, almost kind of a sensibility. And I think you have to read the room also. Like a cousin of mine, he wanted me to get involved with a guru, and I'd appreciate the fact that he eventually was now going to spirituality. But I said, listen, I appreciate the path you're going on, but I'm also doing something. So you need to just, respect that. So you have to understand how other people feel in general before you start saying, even if it's like the best pizza in the world, people may not want to go to that pizza place, or whatever. So you have to just read other people, and then gently just, display it like a gift. Don't think of it as anything else, or try to just say, you should do this, or that's all. Anyway, time's up.
Great point, Sunilji. Wonderful points. Yes, just because you have the greatest pizza doesn't mean that people would really like to eat it, right? And the odds of having a Steve Jobs right? Steve Jobs was a visionary who would tell people, hey, by the way, I'm going to create something, or I'm going to give you something that even you don't know that you would love. Okay. So that may, the odds of that happening in spirituality are pretty less, because it goes much deeper. And Lord Krishna himself is saying, right, not many is going to traverse this path. And but if he can bring about that change or inspire somebody through whatever means, right, nothing like it, nothing like it for sure. Because the toughest thing to do in this world is to bring about the change from within. And if somehow you can become an instrument in that, wonderful. But then it's a delicate balance, like the next slide that I had shown, right? It's more like a chiseling, or working with the finish of a jeweler, as opposed to being a sledgehammer kind of a approach that a blacksmith adopts. And that is where a lot of tolerance, patience, perseverance, empathy, compassion, understanding where your audience are coming from, all those skills would be needed. And mostly those audience that we are really concerned about are our relatives. Great, let's continue. Amita Manishi, do we have? Yeah, I think we have. We can take maybe a few more today because we don't have time pressure. So,
Sure.
is it okay, Amita Manishi?
Yes.
Few more minutes. Yeah, sure.
Jatinder ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Jatinder ji.
Radhe Radhe. Yes, I would like to add another element that I have experienced in my personal experience, I would say, especially at the work, when your colleague or friend is going through stress in their personal life, and they come and talk to you, and then you give whatever advice you feel that will help them go through that situation. And that has worked out really well. But at the same time, the outcome of it has come as envy or jealousy. How come, I didn't know it, or others are good at it? So I've learned a big lesson, that I need to know where my focus should be in terms of help, where it is taken well and respected with thankfulness. I don't expect it, but you can tell, you can see when they come back with the sarcastic remarks on you as opposed to being thankful. And that is understandable. So I have learned, not to misplace my focus of this knowledge or the support. I mean, there's nothing like to provide your support or your help or word, because at the end of the day, your work is like a family to you, right? You spend more than 9 hours over there 5 days a week. So there's nothing wrong doing that, but at the same time, I have learned this, I have to be very careful and mindful, because if someone wants to put themselves in your territory, they don't know what is your experience, what is your knowledge, what you have been through, what is your perspective, your failures, successes, and whatnot. So, like, if I want to put myself in other person's territory, I don't know what I'm getting into, and they are obviously missing that. So I think this is another aspect I wanted to add.
Yes. And often, it's a human psychology. It's like when we are experiencing something, we think we'll be able to we will enable other people to simulate the same experience in their head, which rarely happens. It's just like taking those selfies near a sea beach, feeling that great feeling that you're having, that wind is blowing and that sea sound, and taking that picture and that euphoric feeling that you're having and sharing it with everybody and hoping and thinking that they will feel the same. Doesn't happen. For them, it will just be a pic. So that is where even spirituality happens the same way, right? It's very difficult for people to experience what you are experiencing without them having worked or earned it, the way you probably would have worked for it. Let's quickly hear the other participants as well, and then we'll spend just a couple of minutes to some of the tips to ensure that our faith is not shaken, because it's very important that our mask does not slip away as we are trying to help others, because that's not good for us. Let's take some participants. I can see few more hands, so let's quickly take that.
Nitinji, I'll just read few chats which I've received.
Sure, and in the meantime, you can paste the attendance tracker as well. Please provide your feedback for today's session. I'd love to read that as well, and can have more of such sessions. Yes, go ahead, Amita Manji.
Champaji says, don't use spirituality as a way to judge others. Spirituality should uplift mind, body, and spirit, not condemn others.
Beautiful point.
Do not use spirituality to bypass your feelings. Won't go away if you pretend they are not there. Remember, you are not alone. You are with a beautiful satsang of daily wisdom from Bhagavad Gita led by Nitinji.
Generous of you, yeah, very true. We can't bypass our feelings. We have to confront them and purify those over time. So, beautiful point, Champaji, like always.
Surendraji says, saying I know is also ego, which is equal to edging God out.
Beautiful. I think both of you address this aspect. We should refrain from patronizing and then having a condescending behavior towards others just because our ego says, I know better. Wonderful points. Surendraji and Champaji.
Ambika ji says, Radhe Radhe, it is our dharma to disseminate spiritual knowledge and especially to our children, as Krishna says in Gita. We are also born in families of devotees, so our journey is facilitated but our children are not receptive as we were. Then what is our role in such a case? We feel so strongly about guiding them.
End of the day, they have their own journey, but yes, if we can have that spiritual spark or at least that seed sown in their hearts, like Champaji was talking about the other day, doing all the stuff that we do, celebrating festivals or doing the pujas at home, that's the biggest gift we can give anybody. Any spiritual spark or that seed that we can plant in anybody's heart is the biggest charity or the biggest gift anybody can give anything. And to your kids, if we can somehow get them on this path or mold them or sow those seeds or help them facilitate that process, that's the best we can do for them. Education, all that is fine, but that spirituality is something, if we can give them, even God will love it. Wonderful.
Seemaji has, sorry.
Yes, please go ahead.
Seemaji has shared, when I began my spiritual path 10 years ago, they asked me if I was going to be a nun.
I know, none or they think you'll become a monk now, so I know.
Lakshmi ji says, I think we should use our spiritual knowledge in preventing doing wrong things in our life.
Wonderful. That's, yeah.
Preeti ji, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead, Preeti ji.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Preeti ji.
Beautiful class. I'm feeling sorry I couldn't start the class. I mean, I didn't join it on time. I'm really feeling sorry for it. Nitinji, one small thing I would like to say, spiritual journey, consider it as a do or whatever. But the situations that we get into, we start the condescending behavior that you just said. We feel that we have reached somewhere and we have started feeling calmer, happier, sorted, and there comes a situation where you just come to your knees. You do not know what to do. So such situations, they awaken me that no, there is a way to go, and the spiritual journey. Well, my faith is not shaken, but I once again, with a double force, probably I start working. Radhe Radhe.
Beautiful point, Preeti ji. You brought out a very important point here. See, it's a long journey. It's a journey of faith, and it's a long journey. And the higher our potential, starts becoming, the tougher the tests will also start becoming. Okay, so, and then we have to keep raising our game until those tests are, become a cakewalk for us.
Right.
Yes, we will be tested, but then those tests will be there to just push our envelope a little more. Okay, they will not break us. And all of us will have tests because that is how, like I said, this is a custom course developed for each one of us. We have to embrace it rather than forfeiting that opportunity to really uplift ourselves. But I understand, yes, it can be very treacherous, very difficult because our mind will not cooperate. And it's not easy, but that's where spirituality kicks in, and then that's what we can use to catapult our journey to the next level. I would embrace it as an opportunity than anything else.
That's right. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you so much, Preeti ji. Radhe Radhe.
Shruti ji, you can please go ahead. Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe, everyone. So there's this wearing it on your sleeve or keeping it protected. So I am a very private person, and I don't like to, get into arguments or debates about anything which I believe in. So what I believe in, it's my belief, and I follow it. So I was very devoted to Durga Mata, and then when you don't have complete knowledge and it gets shaken, and from complete believer to I became an atheist, and now I'm finding my ground. Not that I'm very strong or I have found my footing already, but I'm there. I'm treading the waters. So I don't like to discuss it with others, so they don't just push me away from this path again. So I found that people who are actually like-minded, when they got to know that I was not from me, but they got to know that I am on this path, they found me, which was very shocking to me, because I didn't think that they would be on the same page as me. I was like, they are enjoying their life, because we don't know others and we just judge, that they might not be interested. So I don't talk about it, not with anyone. So because I don't want my faith shaken, so I don't talk about it. So, but when they approached me, it was like shocking, and in a very pleasant way. I found it was very pleasant. So like you said it the other day, if you have some knowledge, be Krishna and share. And it's how other person perceives it. Like if they are Pandav or Kaurav, I really use this quote a lot in my head. Leave it on others.
Yep.
If they accept it, they are Pandavas. If they don't, then that's it. Yeah. Thank you.
Great point, Shruti. And in fact, being a private person is exactly what our scriptures tell us when it comes to spirituality. Keep it your private business, unless, of course, you come across a group of satsangis, like-minded people, where you can inspire each other. Yes, open and pour your heart out. But when it comes to regular people, obviously, you have to tread it very cautiously. Earlier, if somebody would ask me, hey, well, you go to temple and you were doing Krishna, Radhe Radhe always, what has happened to you? And I would start, so you do by the way, who Krishna is, who Radha is, and I'll get into, and now it's like, yeah, I do that, man. I've become very boring these days. You still want to keep company with a boring person like me or not? And then that's the end of the discussion, okay? So you have to feel comfortable in your skin. And at the same time, if you come across inspired set of people who would like to discuss this with you, sure. I mean, it's important to share it. And then, in fact, in one of the places, Krishna has also said, when you are actually on this path, you love to sing my glories. You love to tell about me and share it with others. You actually get a bliss discussing these topics with like-minded people. So we should always seek out those opportunity, and that is where the importance of satsang kicks in. Always find some kind of a satsang where you keep this inspiration going and keep taking it to the next level, because this inspiration can fizzle away. That is how powerful Maya is. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that, Shruti. Let's hear from Nanikji, and then I would hand it over to Amrutamani ji. She's been very gracious again today for sparing us a dozen extra minutes.
Yes, sir. I think the very enlightened information. I always, in my family, I used to send video to my family. One of the son got so much interested that he quit his job. He was a doctor. He quit his job and he got in his spirituality. And he attended Swami's lecture also. The other son is very much against it, He thinks we are wasting our time, So I say that it's all depend. I became clear today that it's because of karma. That one's karma was like that, and one is so much involved. He will now gone to India. He will meet Swamiji, and he goes to different gurus. Actually, he has not decided who is his guru, but he just left yesterday to India, and he's going to meet a lot of gurus, and he's going to decide. But other one is very much against it, But I say that all became clear that it is a karma of everybody.
Very true.
I don't force anybody, even me. I never used to go to Gita. Even when I went to Swami's lecture and got the thick book, I never touched it. I thought this is too big. why I may be wasting time. But after attending these sessions, I got interested also. So all it depend upon really somebody's karma. That's what I feel that way.
Yes, very true. Our karmas drive us a lot of part. And then they say if you don't have the proper sanskars, your feet will not allow you to go to a temple or to a discourse. That is how powerful our gunas are. All right, I know real quick, we are way over time, but I think it has been a pretty fascinating, engaging discussion. I had thought so real quick. We can take, I can see a couple of other hands, but are you okay, Amritawaniji?
Okay, Nitinji, yeah.
A minute each, maybe quickly.
Sure, yeah. Padmaji, please go ahead.
Nothing. So just two things I couldn't add earlier. And this is my own self-contemplation over the years. When you're trying to force somebody into spirituality, it's like we're trying to conquer our own mind. But I think what we're really looking for, even though we don't have the proper understanding at the very beginning, it's not that we're trying to conquer our mind to convince somebody, but rather if you calm your mind, that is the greatest gift I think you can give yourself, and in turn you can give to somebody else, like, which is not conquer your mind of wanting to change somebody spiritually, but calm your mind so that that kind of transpires and does what it's supposed to do from your actions. That is number one. And number two is the connection that I made between the spirituality and the parenting. We as parents, every failure that we had in our life, when we had this aha moment, we want to pass this on to our kids, and our past, we want to bring everything that we have, our baggages and experiences, our awakening and aha moments, like we want to throw everything at them. But in fact, it should be a guiding process, but not a solving process. So that was the biggest thing for me as a parent. Don't be a guide, but don't be a solver for them. Let them fall, let them learn. And otherwise they will never learn the way that they're supposed to learn. That's it.
Facilitators, beautiful. Yes, very true. We learn our own lessons, and the best way to learn is by experiencing it ourselves and by our own realizations. Last one for the day, Sunilji, you'll have the closing word, and I know Amritawaniji, you have to make some announcements as well. So I know we have run over time.
Okay. So. Yeah, so I just want to make one quick, and I just want to maybe advocate a little bit for the other side too. So sometimes if you should have a certain confidence also. And so maybe feel free to throw out something here and there. I mean, one time I went to a cafe and I just came from a temple, I had a little tilak thing, and I could have like, tattoos all over this place, completely normal, but this was very shocking. So sometimes you may have to be a little bit bold here. You're not pushing it, just say, this is who I am. I don't have time to hide it. You don't have to hide things. Just sometimes you want to just throw it out there. If you're in a Twitter conversation, throw out little piece of wisdom and just let it be, and then let it go. You don't have to do any convincing. Nothing. Just it's okay just to show that. That's all.
Wonderful point. Yes, in fact, when we say that, it doesn't mean you become a completely private person or anything. It's just like use your prudence around it, right? When we are with satsangis, and anyway, somebody can get inspired, but then unsolicited is not something that, and especially when people are around you, like if I meet 10 people who are in a party and every time everybody's saying that, it's not that I will go out and seek out opportunity to talk about it. But yes, in general, it's fine. I didn't feel comfortable putting it on my Facebook and other things, but I'm no longer in any of the social network now. But whatever I do, now I feel completely comfortable, because you never know who that message might get resonated with and who can get benefited from it, right? So we should leverage social media, all the channels, to disseminate this message as best as we possibly can. Great point. All right, over to you, Amritawaniji, and we'll continue our conversation next week on 3.30. And thank you again for your enthusiastic participation and a wonderful discussion. Please fill out the attendance tracker in the meantime. Over to you, Amritawaniji, for the announcements for that.
Thank you, Nitinji, for the wonderful session. We do not have a book club right now, so we will be closing once the announcements are done. Tomorrow, Saturday, we have Sanskrit class. That is a little advanced class. It's at 9 a.m. CST. And we have 11:30 a.m. CST, a Bhagavad Gita study session. And at 8 p.m. CST, we do have Vedic philosophy session. So the attendance tracker has been posted, so please take a moment to fill that. Nitinji, over to you for the closing prayers.
Thank you, Amritawaniji. We'll do our closing prayers. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, everyone. 10th to 14th, there's going to be a Bhagavad Gita. Check it out on our website. I think there's going to be a Bhagavad Gita Jayanti coming up. So there's going to be some speakers coming up, and it's going to be a Bhagavad Gita festival for those 4 days. So do check it out as well. Thank you again and have a wonderful weekend and a great rest of your day. I look forward to seeing you next week again. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Nitinji. I will be closing the bridge now. Thank you.
Thank you, Amitavanji. Radhe Radhe, everyone.
Radhe Radhe, everyone.